Hey yo fellow investors, how are you doing? My name is Stijn and welcome to my YouTube channel. We have talked about a lot of companies with tons of potential in the last couple of weeks, but we actually didn't do an in-depth analysis in my number one stock to buy now for months. Actually, the last video on this company specifically was back in February. So it's due time for some proper fundamental analysis. The company we are talking about is Regeneron, or ticker symbol REGN. And by the way, before we start, a full disclosure, about 15% of my portfolio is in Regeneron. So do take my opinions with a grain of salt. Anyways, the first thing we will talk about is their current product lineup and their business plan. Second, we'll talk about the future of Regeneron, so their future pipeline and the research they are currently doing. Third, some financial metrics. And lastly, my own buy targets. Now, let's go. So what does this bad boy Regeneron actually do? Well, they are a pharmaceutical company, of course. And they actually got a couple of things going on. So this is the science tab. We'll do a deeper dive at the second part of this video. We'll just focus on the current medicines they produce now. So these are the current medicines they are producing: Dupixent, Evkeeza, Eylea, Inmazeb, Kevzara, Libtayo, Preluent. And they also currently produce REGN, which is a COVID medicine. So not a vaccine, but a medicine if you do happen to get sick. And this is from Regeneron's 10K net product sales of Regeneron discovered products. So this isn't purely Regeneron's revenue, but also their partners included. Anyway, we can see that Eylea is 8 billion of their total revenue, which is a huge chunk for the year 2020. We can also see that Dupixent generated about $4 billion in revenue in 2020, which is also a massive chunk. All the other medicines only generated about $100 million to $350 million in revenue, which is just tiny compared to Dupixent and Eylea, but combined makes up a healthy chunk too. We can also see healthy growth in their Eylea sales for 8 billion in 2020, which came from 7.5 billion in 2019 and 6.7 billion in 2018. The same growth can be seen in Dupixent, which is at 4 billion now, but used to be at $2.3 billion in 2019 and about 922 million in 2018. So we are seeing healthy growth in all of their products, but we're seeing a really large reliance on Eylea for their revenue streams. And just a couple of months ago, this was kind of concerning, since Novartis, their main competitor for their Eylea drug, actually sued them. And this was patent based, but apparently Novartis won't be able to block Regeneron's popular Eylea prefilled syringe anytime soon after a regulatory setback. So this is good news if you're investing in Regeneron. So now it's time to dig a little bit deeper in the company that is Regeneron. So for the year 2020, they did a total of $8.5 billion in revenue. And after all their expenses, that comes down to an income from operations, so a gross margin of $3.5 billion, or about 42%. And this company is actually amazing in generating profits, since they had a net margin or net income of $3.5 billion, so 41% net margins. And I think it is really important we put the numbers of Regeneron in context, since the 41% is just insane for net income margins. So now we're looking at Pfizer, which is a really large competitor as well in the pharmaceutical space. So they did about $42 billion in revenue for the year 2020, and they got to a gross margin of about 72% and a net income of $9.6 billion, so that's only 23%. So Regeneron, with 41% of net income margins, almost does twice as well in generating profits. So to summarize this part of the video, Regeneron is just a beast in generating income. Although their gross margins might be kind of lackluster compared to the pharmaceutical space, their net income margins are stellar. We are seeing great growth in their current product lineup. And although their revenue streams are quite dependent on Eylea, it seems to be that this isn't really the biggest concern for the upcoming years. Now it's time to look ahead. Let's look at the research and the current pipeline of products Regeneron actually has. And do keep in mind that I am no doctor, so I shouldn't go into the specifics of each medicine individually. Anyways, we are looking at their current pipeline of products, and we can see that they have about 37 items displayed. That means they have 37 medicines in their current phase 1 to phase 3 trials. And by the way, these are FDA approval trials. So the further along a medicine is in these trials, the more likely it is to hit the market anytime soon. So if we select phase 3, we can see that there are 8 medicines being displayed right now. That means that these 8 medicines are quite likely to hit the market soon. They have about 13 items in phase 2, meaning that they have 13 items that could be expected in the upcoming 5 years maybe. And they've also got 16 medicines in phase 1 trials. Anyways, we can see that from the 37, only 7 of these medicines are rare diseases. So there are about 30 mass market or larger public medicines. And we investors need to keep in mind that Regeneron only has 8 medicines that it currently produces. So 1 or 2 big hitters from this pipeline of upcoming products can mean great things from their ability to generate profits. Besides, Regeneron is doing research in a lot of different research areas. And the first we'll look at is antibodies. So from my point of view, Regeneron seems to be a leader in the antibody space. Regeneron also seems open as a company to new ways of developing medicines. And of course, they're also researching one of ARK Invest's biggest disruptive technologies that are upcoming, the genomic revolution. And that leads me to the side step that is ARK Invest. So we are currently looking at the ARK-G or Genomic Fund, and we can see that Regeneron is on the 5th place of this fund at about $350 million in total market value, or they make up about 4% of their genomic fund. I personally do not really care if ARK Invest is selling, buying or holding Regeneron shares, since I need to make my own investment thesis. But some of you do really care, and I think it is great to see that a great investor like Cathie Wood is looking at Regeneron. So as an investor, it's great to see that Regeneron is focusing on diversifying research, R&Ding to grow in the future. And they just seem to be set up nicely for hyper growth for years to come. Now I want to look through some financial metrics together. The first we'll look at is net income. This is their ability to profit. And we can see that Regeneron is able to grow their profits quite nicely. They've been growing since 2014 at about 40% compounded year over year, which is just an insane return. So they were at about $300 million in profits in the year 2014, and they are at about $4 billion in profits per year today in 2021. And in their EPS or earnings per share chart, we can see a very similar theme. So they went from about $3 per share in earnings in 2014 to a whopping $35 per share in 2021. And that is of course made possible by their current shares outstanding. So they haven't been growing their shares outstanding since 2014. They've actually flattened out and decreased them slightly by doing buybacks. So this is what we like to see. They aren't diluting their stock. It is also important to see what debt levels a company has. So in the latest earnings, they've shown that they have about $2 billion in debt. And that might sound like a lot, but if we look at their net income, we can see they generate about $4 billion per year. So if they want to, they can pay off their debt in just half a year of profits, which is fine. Warren Buffett's metric for determining if a company is fine on debt is about 4 years of net income. So we're just at half a year, so we're doing great. And there are of course way more numbers to look into. For example, assets, liabilities, cash on hand, etc. But I think they should be sufficient for now. The rest is for you to research. This was just meant as a stepping stone and giving you a great idea of the fundamentals of this company. Now it is time for my buy target calculations. So we are looking at the chart for Regeneron, or ticker symbol REGN, of course. And we're assuming 20% growth for the next 10 years. And I think this is fairly doable since they've been averaging 40% earnings growth per year for the last 10 years. And they've actually been accelerating in their growth. So 20% seems doable. We're also assuming a future P ratio of 25, which is according to my opinions conservative. You can change the number if and how you desire. We're also assuming a discount rate of 15%. Oh, by the way, that's just my minimum return on investment, and it is quite conservative. Many investors actually use 10 or even 8% as a discount rate, so this 15% is really conservative. Anyways, their EPS or earnings per share for 2020 was $30.52. So if we were to grow that at 20% compounded for the next 10 years, that would result in a whopping $190 in earnings per share in 2030. Now if we were to multiply this number by 25, that will result in a future stock price of about $4,700 in the year 2030. Keep in mind that's 10 exponential from today's prices. And now we need to express that as a sticker price today. So that's kind of fair value to pay for this company today. And that discounted at 15% results in about $1,200 per share as a sticker price today. But of course, we value investors never pay intrinsic value. We need to apply a margin of safety. And I'm gonna take 50%, which I do on every company I invest in. And that results in a buy target of about $580 per share. So, according to my opinions and these calculations, Regeneron at $500 per share, where it's trading at today, seems like a great buy. Anyways, I think that's it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a like and maybe even subscribe. Comment down below what you want me to talk about next, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.